everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Skiff Meetings podcast. My name is Miguel Neves, the editor-in-chief of Skiff Meetings, and this podcast is all about event technology. In fact, it is called the State of Event Tech 2024, and I'm going to be talking about the latest report that we published on Skiff Meetings, the Event Tech Almanac 2024. I'm going to cover the ins and outs of what's inside. I'm going to talk about why we decided to do this report in the first place, and I'm going to talk about what's happening in event technology at this point in time. It's been a really interesting few years, of course, with the COVID pandemic leading to that pivot to virtual that we've talked about quite a bit. And now we're in a really different place. And it's really fascinating to understand where event technology companies are, what planners are prioritizing, and really what's out there for technology for events. So stick with us if you'd like to learn a little bit more about where the world of event technology is today. Detroit has always been America's assembly line of creativity and innovation. It's home to groundbreakers, movers and shakers, the next generation that will change the nation. Bring your meeting to Detroit, then take it all in. Award-winning dining, a captivating live music scene, and world-class outdoor spaces like America's top Riverwalk, as ranked by USA Today. This is your invitation to join America's true originals. Plan your meeting in Detroit. Get started at visitdetroit.com. So let's start talking about the state of event technology. The world of event technology took a massive journey during the COVID pandemic. I don't think anybody who's been following this industry for a while is not aware of that. It is a small industry. Event technology is a relatively small industry. If you look at the major trade shows and kind of major companies in the space, most of them are relatively small, and we'll cover that a little bit more later on. But then during the pandemic, with this need for virtual technology to just replace the in-person events that couldn't take place, there was this incredible jump and pivot and just need for event technology knowledge and platforms and to really kind of try to do any type of events online that were possible. Of course, that went viral almost, right? There was just this incredible need for that. And so this is an industry that's still figuring out what is happening, what is the new normal, if you will. Of course, there was the Hopin journey, which started in 2019 and sort of by mid-2020 was on everybody's mouths, and just people were talking about it. And at one point, Hopin was the fastest growing company in the world, I believe, and was a true unicorn. And at its peak was valued at $7.7 billion, which was roughly the same as Cvent was valued at the time, which, as we'll see later on, is still the largest real event tech company in the world. Of course, now the Hopin story did not necessarily have a happy ending. RingCentral purchased the Hopin Events platform and is now one of our sponsors in this guide. So thanks to them for that. And then lately, the last update was that the remaining assets of Hopin, mainly the StreamYard streaming platform, was sold to Bending Spoons. And so the Hopin brand really is no more. But there are other topics like this, other journeys like this, not quite as spectacular, but other companies that have shifted quite a bit in the last few years. For example, WebEx purchased Socio a while back and has now, since that became WebEx Events, and WebEx recently announced that they are no longer kind of in the market for event technology. They will offer the platform for their WebEx customers, so the platform will continue to exist, but they're not actively marketing to event professionals, which is a big shift. And also Notified, that bought Hub in 2021. They've also sold the assets for their virtual platform to BrandLive. They've kept a part of the assets, which is the one doing investor calls. So they've kept part of it, but really, again, not really active in the event technology, in the events industry, really. Before that, we also saw a lot of consolidation. Meeting, Play, Eventry, and EventCore became Stova, and a number of platforms kind of purchased other smaller platforms to kind of be part of it. EventMobi purchased Run the World, and we saw a few interesting moves like the Swiss Post purchasing SpotMe, which is still around and still active, but a very interesting move there. So here we are, the Event Tech Almanac, the Skift meetings report on event technology. We only do one a year now. In the past, Event MB, which then became Skift meetings, would do a mobile event app guide, or the event app Bible, the original name, and also a virtual event tech guide. But we've merged this into one big report. And this is the one. It's a big effort. It takes a lot of deep work, and I think it really needs to be decoded. And this is why I decided to do this podcast and to really talk to you through the report. And I hope this is useful to many of you out there. So what will you find in the report? It's free to download. Please do visit our website. We'll put a link also here in the podcast notes about how to download the report. But essentially, we collected data from 85 different event technology platforms. Now, at the peak of the COVID pandemic, we talked about somewhere around 800 platforms. That was probably a little exaggerated, a little bit of double counting there. There was actually a Event Tech 800 website that tried to list them all. That doesn't exist anymore. At my latest count, there was probably somewhere between 400 and 600 event tech platforms. Now, not all of these still exist. A lot of them have not been updated, and a lot of them work as sort of SaaS platforms that are self-service. So they're not necessarily the type of platforms that event professionals really want to look at. But we ended up with 85 because all these 85 platforms gave us information. They entered the survey. They provided information. They provided us with data. We asked a number of interesting questions, and I'll get to those a little bit later on. Some of them did not want to provide all the information we asked, which is absolutely fine. Some questions were mandatory, but not everything was. But we really wanted to have that first-party data. We wanted to hear from the platforms directly. And so that's why we ended up with 85. And these 85 are across a number of categories, the biggest one being the kind of all-in-one category, which is always slightly hard to define what is all-in-one. But for the most part, the all-in-one category are platforms that offer a event management, really registration, managing events. Most of them offer a virtual platform within them, and also all sorts of other things around event marketing, and also just the general management of the events, things like badging, or at least badge design. That would be the kind of relatively common explanation of all-in-one. And out of the 85 that we included, 32 fit into this category. So not quite half, but a large kind of section of these platforms are define themselves as all-in-one. But we also have platforms that fall into a category of audience management, community management and content management, event marketing, housing, matchmaking, platforms that are focused on mobile apps, on-site technology, registration and ticketing. So these platforms will only really offer that registration part of the platforms, maybe the badging as well. And then venue sourcing providers, also virtual event tools. A lot of these will offer similar tools to the all-in-one category, but really focus more on virtual events. And then there are also a few platforms. I think we have 6 platforms that really don't fit into any of these categories. So we had to list them under other. But we did ask a number of questions about the market, about the business that really apply across the board. And then we covered a lot of features, and that's something I want to get into next. So in the past, we've done some of these reports and covered over 200 features. We thought that was overkill. I don't think that anybody's going to choose a platform over another because of a very detailed feature or how a feature works. I mean, it could happen, but I think it's for the purpose of this kind of report, I think it's more important to have general features, general type of, whether a platform has been developed in a certain way or has a certain capability. And maybe even it's better to think about these as capabilities rather than features. Features can be very kind of minutiae. So we are looking here at 60 features, which already is quite a lot. But as you'll see, it actually doesn't come down to too much. So 60 features in 4 categories, and these categories are marketing and sales. So really kind of before an event, the experience during an event, data privacy and security, and that's also about kind of all throughout the event, but a really specific thing, and support. Support is really important. And why we choose to focus on features when we do those reports? One of the reasons is actually because it is the top question by both prospects and clients. And also, how to use features is the third most popular question for clients. So we asked these 85 platforms what were the most popular, the three most popular questions from prospects and the three most popular from clients. And for both of these, features came top, and how to use those features was the third most popular question for clients. So features is something that people really care about when they're trying to figure out which event tech platform is right for them. And another interesting statistic that kind of backs up this focus on features is that 24 out of these 85 platforms, so around a third, said that the top reason that clients choose their product is because they have a fully featured platform. And so that idea of fully featured, all in one, if you will, that seems to be really important for event tech buyers, for planners looking to acquire event tech or use event tech. That idea that they can do a lot of different things with one platform seems to be very, very important. The next on this list is a great product fit. So I think finding a product that really works for your needs is really what we're talking about here. And then next on that list, kind of closing out the top three, is great ease of use, or really the great UX, the user experience of a platform. So those three are really the top three. Interestingly, one of the options that we had was price. And price was only selected by 2 out of these 85 platforms. So not a lot of platforms are sort of really putting their lower price, I would say, as a kind of front thing on their website or in their marketing. However, what's interesting here is that price is the second most asked question when it comes to prospects, when it comes to sales. Now, you could argue that price in this case, in this context, doesn't necessarily mean low price. It means kind of figuring out the price. But still, the fact that price is so important and not many platforms are sort of offering price as kind of one of the main reasons why clients choose them, I think is quite interesting. And talking about price, another question that we asked was this idea of pricing models. So how do these platforms price themselves? And for very much the frustration of planners all around the world, the fact is here that this is still all over the place. There is not a lot of transparency. Not a lot of these companies are offering pricing very clearly or in an easy way to understand on a website. And there's definitely no industry standard. The most common that we detected was what we call base price plus added features. So that is, there's one kind of relatively standard price, and then you can kind of add features as you go. There's also a fixed tiers pricing. These both collected 22.5% of all the kind of 85 platforms. Then, so almost half of all platforms fit into these two categories. Pricing by number of attendees is next with 17.6%, and bespoke and also flat subscription are at 8.2%. But as you can see, there's a really kind of wide range. And even within these, there's a lot of overlap, and it's quite a tricky thing to understand. So pricing, unfortunately, is tricky. And, from what I understand of event technology, this is a challenge because the way server capacity is needed to really service clients when event technology is offered depends a lot on how an event works, whether it's a virtual event, whether there are a lot of functionalities within the platform that are being used, whether everybody's kind of using it on their phones or different devices. So there's a lot of variables. And so I can understand from the event technology company's perspective that it's quite hard to create a pricing that is just easy and quick to kind of get to a number, and then they can kind of stick to it. Because also there are things that suddenly boost needs, like there's more development needed, or there's more support needed, or there's other things that kind of add costs that planners don't necessarily take into consideration. And so it's hard to have a simplified number. This is not like buying a piece of software that you use just regularly every day. This is a very mission critical piece of software that needs to work during a very specific period of time, and the number of people using it in any specific way might change overnight or might change minute by minute. So it's a tough one. And then it's not something that's, we're not talking about millions of users. We're talking about usually a few thousand users, if that. So it's not like you can roll out a Zoom style platform or kind of a Microsoft Office kind of across everything. So pricing is difficult, to say the least, and it's not something that I think planners and event technology providers will ever really see eye to eye on. But hopefully the data that we provide in the guide can help people understand the different approaches and what is really being paid for and the kind of features that maybe cost more, etc. So one of the things that we cover in the guide as well is this idea of deal breaker features. If you downloaded the report we did last year, Event Tech Made Simple, which is kind of the predecessor of this report, we did this as well. We covered this idea of deal breaker features. And the idea here being that there are certain features or certain kind of categories of features that really will be deal breakers when you're looking to change event tech provider. If you find out that the event tech provider you're looking at doesn't have or doesn't offer a certain type of features, there's a good chance that will be a deal breaker, that will be something that you can't really, a platform that you can't really consider. And we break this down into 5 different ones. And I'll share some statistics about these 85 companies that are included in the report around these deal breaker features. So the first one is robust data reporting. And this is kind of, a little bit vague, but I think the idea here being that if the platform is not offering you a really robust data analysis or an opportunity for robust data analysis, then that's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people because data is so important for planners these days. And fortunately, from the list of 85 platforms that we have here, 81%, so almost all, I guess, there's like 19% missing there, offer robust data reporting. And we break this down a little bit further. So one thing we look at is live data dashboards, and 86% of those companies offer live data dashboards. So there's definitely a very big focus on data. And so I think with almost all of these companies, you will find that. And again, a reminder that this report covers all sorts of different platforms. So not all platforms will have the focus on data won't be as important or as obvious, but I think it's always important. And so I think it's worth having and worth considering. The second deal breaker feature we talk about is systems integration. And the idea here being that event planners are looking for platforms that are somewhat open-ended, so they can connect different platforms if they need to, or connect their platform with a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, or something like that. And again, here, the vast majority of the platforms in the report offer 87%, so 74 out of the 85 offer cross-platform integration. So this might be through an API or something like that. They can connect to different platforms and the data can be securely shared, which I think is really interesting. Another area that I think is worth considering is that 97%, so 82 out of 85 platforms allow for a partial use of a platform. And this is really interesting. So, you might want to, sometimes you can buy an all-in-one or you can have a certain platform that does everything. But then there's another platform out there that does something really well or that has a very interesting feature that you'd like to use, but, maybe the current platform already has something like that and you'd like to integrate that somehow. And so the opportunity here is that there's integration and you can use part of a platform, only one part of a platform. And so this is not a simple thing. You can't just switch it on and suddenly it all works perfectly. But just having that opportunity to do something like this, to be able to use only specific features within a platform or use more than one platform or kind of integrate them, I think those things are very important today to planners.
Are you ready to celebrate your successes in the world of meetings and events? The Skift Meetings Awards are back for 2024, recognizing the most innovative business events companies across 15 categories, and we want you to be a part of it. Winners will feature on Skift Meetings, sending a clear signal to events professionals around the world that these are partners they can rely on. The final deadline for submissions is June 11th. We encourage you to start your submission today to secure the best entry rates. For more information and to start your submission, head to live.skift.com.
The other thing that I would cover, and I've already mentioned the CRM integration, which I think is one of the most important integrations. Interestingly, only 65%, so 55 out of the 85 platforms offer an integration with a CRM platform. Again, I'm going to mention that there are a number of different types of platforms included in this report, but I would have thought that more. I'm actually surprised that this number is low. I would think that the CRM integration, the integration with things like HubSpot or Marketo or Pardot or something like that, or Microsoft CRM, I think would make sense for event technology, this kind of integration with anything to do with customer management. But yeah, again, only 55 out of 85, 65% offer an integration with a CRM platform. So if that's a really important thing for you, then make sure you figure out which ones do and which ones don't. Another one of these deal-breaking features, the third one, is support. And this is something that we've talked a lot about on Skift meetings. And support is just super important. Again, that idea that event management, event technology is really technology that's supporting a one-time experience. The technology cannot go down. It has to be available. It's not like something that if it doesn't work today, you can just try again tomorrow. That's not how events work. We know that. So support is very, very important. And support is definitely something that all these companies take very seriously. And one interesting fact that I'll share is that 11 companies say that they will respond in under a minute pre-event. So before an event's going on, without any sort of extra payment, just as part of their standard support offering, they say that they will respond to a support request in under 1 minute. Now, live, that actually goes up to 27 out of 85 of these companies. So about a third of the companies will say that they will respond live once an event is live in under 1 minute. And interestingly, 22 out of these 27 say that they will include this in their service level agreement. So out of 27 companies that say that they'll respond in under a minute live, once an event is live, only 5 say that they won't include this in their service level agreement or didn't say that they would. Some of them said that they didn't want to commit to that. They didn't say they didn't, but 22 out of the 27 that will support in under a minute said that they will include this commitment in their service level agreement. And I think that is pretty impressive. So 22 of these companies are by contract, contractually obligated, contractually committing to offering support in under a minute for events. I think that's really impressive. And I would definitely, if support is as important as I'm making it sound to be, then I would definitely have figuring out which of these companies they are. And of course, download the report if you want to go into these sort of details. Now, the fourth deal breaker feature is data security. And I think this is something that's really become top of mind in the last few years. A very, very important, very powerful thing, this idea of data security, having data secure within these platforms and really managing it in the best possible way. Now, one question that I think is really an important deal breaker is this idea of who owns the data. When it comes to ownership of the data, there are really two camps here. There are the companies that say, nope, the client owns all the data. We are just the processor. If you're familiar with the GDPR language, there's the processor and the data owner, I believe. They are just, so the event technology companies say they are just a processor. They, each client, each person, each company they work with has their own data lake, completely separate from the others, and there is no cross-reference of data at any point. They may take some, user statistics, some anonymous user statistics, but the client owns the data, and only the client owns the data. Now, this applies to 63 out of these 85 companies, which works out at 74%. The other companies, and mainly they offer this idea that they have a shared ownership of the data. Now, a few companies did respond that you could choose, that clients could choose, but quite a few have this idea of shared ownership of the data. And what happens here is when a user, not the planner, but the user of the software, so the person attending an event, when they log in, when they kind of access an event, they create an account. And when they do this, they create an account with the platform. And once they create an account with the platform, then that data, that person, that identity is also a kind of client or a user of that platform. And so once that event is over, that gives that platform opportunities to, for example, market to that client. Now, I'm not suggesting that these companies will necessarily do that actively, but it does enable them to do so. And so it has its advantages. So the idea being that if you're using the same event tech platform for multiple events, when you log in, you can then see all the events that you have been to and maybe the ones that are coming up, and you can easily just kind of port your profile from one to the other. It's like having a Facebook account or a Zoom account or something like that. You can easily move around. Now, that is very useful. I do not dispute that at all. The kind of flip side to that is that if you're, especially if you're working in a very safe environment, if it's like fintech or medical, life sciences, that kind of thing, a lot of times the data on the participants is very sensitive. And the idea that the Event Tech platform also owns the data in some way, or can then market or can then consider those people as users at other events, can create all sorts of issues when it comes to data privacy. And so this is a big question to ask and to understand, and particularly if you have a data compliance officer or whoever really manages that for your company or for your event. I think it's very important to make sure you understand how that works for each of the platforms. This is definitely a deal breaker for some companies, and so definitely something to consider and ask and really understand what the companies say they will do, because some companies will have this system but then commit to never marketing or never sharing that data other than having a user account on a platform, and that may be okay, that may be fine, that may be all that a certain event organizer needs, but in some situations it won't. So it's important to have that conversation. Another element of this data security is this idea of single sign-on. Really useful if you can have, if you have a company internal system that you can sign on, and then you're going to get people to register for an event, and they can just jump straight into that registration form with a single sign-on, so they don't even have to think about a password or anything like that. That's something that's really useful. So 62 out of 85 companies included, that's 73%, offer a single sign-on option. Another thing that's worth considering here is data encryption. 70 out of the 85 companies, so 82%, offer data encryption. And there's also this idea that a lot of organizations require servers to be in a certain region, certain localization. And we also ask this, and the idea of selecting server location, usually it has to be in the US for US companies sometimes, or it has to be in the EU for EU headquartered organizations. And the 51 out of the 85 event tech platforms offer this idea of selecting between different server locations. So 60% of those offer this. Again, I want you to keep in mind that the tools, the platforms that are included cover a wide range of applications. So for some, data security, privacy may not be so important or may not be so much of an issue, but for other uses, it is very, very important. The final deal breaker feature that I'd like to go into some detail is this idea of customization and branding. Now, customization is the third most asked question from a prospect perspective, so people looking to acquire or work with a new platform, and the second most asked question from clients. So customization of a platform is very, very top of mind for both clients and prospects. Custom branding is offered by 72 out of 85. So 85% of the event tech platforms listed include some sort of custom branding. And the idea with custom branding is that you can choose your colors, put logos, kind of really make the platform your own with that kind of customization. But if you want to go further than that, if you want to really sort of remove any reference to the provider, to the technology company that's really providing the platform, white labeling, that is called. A few less companies offer this. So 69 out of those 85, so 81%. Still the vast majority, a lot of the companies do, but 81% of the companies in the report offer white labeling. So this idea to completely remove their company name from anywhere on the platform. Now, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is AI, and AI seems to be everywhere these days. And so we did ask the event technology providers or platforms, whether they use AI. And only 20 out of the 85 don't use AI at all. So that was somewhat surprising to me because not all these platforms have been advertising or really marketing their AI capabilities. But 65 out of 85, which is 76%, use some form of AI within their platform. Now, what that looks like exactly can go anywhere from some sort of chat GPT integration, so like a quick tool area or somewhere where you can easily access chat GPT from within the platform, to a full customized proprietary AI solution. So there's a lot of variety within that. But we also asked what type of things that the AI helps with within the platform, and content suggestions actually came out on top. So 32 of the 85 platforms, about 38%, offer use AI for content suggestions. And then there are three areas that are relatively similar: matchmaking, a support chatbot, and marketing content. Those all are range around from 27 to 25 of those companies offer this type of AI. And then one kind of emerging area that a few offer is analytics and reporting. So 8 companies out of the 85 offer analytics and reporting, use AI for analytics and reporting. I think this is something that's going to grow a lot, and we will be running some more stories around the use of AI and how Event Tech is using AI. So look out for that. That will probably be a further development in next year's report, which we hope to do another report like this. But AI is definitely a popular topic, and understanding how AI can be used to help with event management and event planning is very, very important. One other area that I think is worth noting is, we talked a little bit about at the start of the podcast about the kind of roller coaster ride of event technology in the last few years. And I think it's really important to kind of make it clear that event technology is not dead. It was a small industry before the COVID pandemic. It went on this crazy boom, and it is again a relatively small industry, but it's a solid industry. And what's interesting is when we asked these 85 companies about the state of business, they actually see that more than 95%, so almost all the companies are seeing a greater or equal demand of their services compared to last year. Now, granted, there's been some consolidation within the industry. We've lost a few companies, etc. So that may have something to do with it, but that is a big statistic. 95%, like almost everybody, very few, less than 5% are seeing less demand for their services this year. And then when we asked them about the competition, they're also seeing 56%, so more than half are saying that the competition is similar to last year. And 30% say that the competition has increased. So again, a small amount are saying the competition has decreased. And so this is definitely not a dead industry. This is an industry that's developing at a very much slower pace than during the COVID pandemic, but very steady. The other thing is this kind of idea of who's just supporting virtual, who's doing in-person events. And really the vast majority here, 3/4 of all the companies featured in the report, are supporting primarily in-person events. And this is last year. We asked them about 2023. They supported primarily in-person events. Hybrid events came after this, so again with an in-person component. And virtual events were definitely in a minority. And so this is definitely an industry that's completely shifted. While there are 7 companies listed in the report that say they focus mainly on virtual events, even within those companies, there are plenty of opportunities for supporting at least hybrid events, or at least some of them will be supporting a lot of hybrid events, or the virtual component of hybrid events, if you will. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to leave you with a few curiosities around the data, the companies that are included in this report. So I'll start with, we asked the companies about when they were founded, and 8 out of the 85 event tech platforms were founded before the year 2000. So there's 8 companies that are at least 25 years old. And the company that was founded the earliest is actually Events Air, an Australia-based company that was founded in 1990. So there's a bit of a trivia for you. Now, we also asked about the the amount of full-time employees that these companies have. And going in kind of inverse order, we have Encore, which is in the guide. They say they have, this is all data collected from them, from the company. So they say they have 10,000 employees. Now, Encore are in the guide because they have an app that they provide to their clients. They're not, not all of these 10,000 employees are working in event technology, but nevertheless, they are a large company and they're in the guide. Second came Cvent, which in my mind is the largest company in the event tech space, because they say they have 4,800 full-time staff. And to my knowledge, all of them work to some extent in event technology, whether it's on the event management side of things or the venue finding side of Cvent. I would also consider that to be technology for events. So almost 5,000 full-time staff for Cvent. And if you're listening and you want to learn more about Cvent, we're going to have Reggie Agarwal, the CEO of Cvent, live at the Skift Meetings Forum that's happening on September 17th in New York City. Please do go buy your tickets if you want to join us for that. I will be interviewing Reggie Agarwal about all of the questions that I'm very curious to ask about the Cvent world, about their business, about their development, about their future plans. So that'll be a one-on-one interview. That'll be a big part of the event happening on September 17th. So do check that out. It is on our website. Next up is RingCentral, so the third largest company, and this RingCentral who acquired the Hopin events assets. And really, when we're talking about the event tech side of RingCentral, we're really talking about RingCentral events. Now, RingCentral have 4,000 full-time staff, according to them. But again, not every one of these people will be working in event tech. And I would imagine that it is a much smaller number, but still they are in the third place here in our list. Next up, Eventbrite. Again, a company that doesn't come up a lot, but essentially a company that does work in event technology, offers a registration system and a kind of marketplace for events. A lot on the consumer side, but a lot of professionals also use Eventbrite. So they have 1,100, so 1,100 full-time staff. And next we have a list of several companies that are really just focused on that event technology. Kaltura comes in at number 5 with 600 employees, followed by Rainfocus, 364 employees, full-time staff. Stova, 290, that merger of Eventtree, Meeting Play, and EventCore. Then we have vFairs with 254, Wova with 200, InEvent with 200, Bizibo with 180, and Swapcard with 170. And I mentioned these 11 because it's only Swapcard out of this list, this kind of descending list of the companies with the largest number of full-time staff, that is not US based. So out of the top 12 companies, so Swapcard is number 12, 11 of those are based in the US, which I think is really powerful, really kind of really makes it ring true about how big the event technology space is in the US compared to the rest of the world. We also asked about the number of clients that companies have, and not everybody shared this information, but lots did. And a lot of these companies that I mentioned here, being the ones with the largest number of full-time staff, are amongst those saying that they serviced at least 2,000 or more events last year. This is in 2023. But there's a few companies that are added to this list that also said they supported more than 2,000 events. Meet You, a German company, Noonify, ID Loom, and Evalato. Now, the caveat here is, 2,000 events, a lot of them could be very small events. A lot of them could be just private virtual events, etc. So, there's a lot of leeway in the statistic, but I think it's interesting to see that these companies are servicing a large number of events. ID Loom being a registration-focused company, so again, there could be all sorts of types of registration events. And Evalato, a company that does awards and a number of different things. So again, lots of different types of clients potentially. We also asked details about how many separate events are use the platform, or each of the platforms in 2023, and also the total number of unique users, in other words, of attendees on the platforms in 2023. I'm not going to go into the details on that, but if you'd like, it's in the report, and download it and have a look and read through that. We also asked the companies about their top client sector, and like we already mentioned, this is not something that I'm going to go into, but it's all in the report. So Last time I'll say this, go download the report. What are you waiting for? This is the Event Tech Almanac 2024. It has information on 85 event tech companies and offers you a really interesting perspective on what is happening in the world of event tech. So do go download it. It is a free report. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed this podcast and me talking a little bit through what we uncovered and the state of event tech in 2024.